So yes, hello again, and welcome to our Community Sandbox session for this evening. So before we get started, I'm just going to go over our friendly space policy. I will drop a link to the Wikimedia UK Safer Spaces policy into the chat once I've done this introduction. But in general, what we'd like to say to start all our sessions off is that the goal of this session is to create an encouraging space for collective learning. This requires intentional behaviour wherein participants are conscious of and accountable for the effect of their statements and actions on others. We respect our experiences and the experiences of others and recognise that we can't do this work without one another. And we agree to hold each other accountable to foster a brave and friendly space. My name is Sarah Thomas. I'm a programme manager at Wikimedia UK. If there's any issues this evening that you would like to bring to my attention, please use the private chat direct message function on Zoom. I'll also be monitoring the general chat if folks have any questions or any difficulties. So as I said before, we will be recording this session. And this evening's Sandbox session is being hosted by Lucy Moore on Smell and Wikimedia Project's idea on where, why, and how and why to add it. Lucy is an experienced Wikimedia editor who mostly edits about women. She got interested in Smell in 2023 and has been promoting its inclusion in Wikimedia projects since then. I have seen Lucy present about Smell and Wikimedia before, and I'm really, really looking forward to this session because it's such a fascinating topic. If you'd like to hear more from us, then you can get added to our mailing list. I, again, will drop that link into the chat. But without further ado, what I shall now do is hand over to Lucy.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to share my screen. Yep. And I'll put it on slideshow. So thanks so much for coming, everyone. Just perhaps as a bit more of an introduction to myself. So in my professional day-to-day life, I'm a museum curator and I specialise in coinage. And if you know anything about ancient coins, people love to structure data around them. And in my hobby life, I'm a Wikipedia editor. And again, I'm really interested in how we can promote knowledge better kind of all around the world. And this session, the thing I would say is that adding smell and lots of the things we will talk about is kind of in its infancy across Wikimedia. And I use that like as a catch-all term that I'll explain in a moment. So there is lots and lots of potential for more people to get involved, but also for you to bring your own perspectives to kind of say, oh, it's interesting you're doing it like that. Like I would suggest perhaps something else could be done and so on. The session is, it's the last one before Christmas, so hopefully it's going to be a bit light-hearted. I do have some very, hopefully slightly fun quizzes, but they're just, put guesses in the chat kind of thing. So I hope that you will like them as well. So just preparing you for a little bit of chat action. We've done our little welcome. We've got this beautiful bouquet of flowers. So just by the end of the session, just so that you will know where hopefully we'll end up, we'll have looked at some examples of why smell should be considered significant for Wikimedia. We'll have learned some useful techniques to represent smell on Wikidata. More on which in a second. And we'll have also learned how to add smell-related images to Wikimedia Commons. If you are new to the Wikimedia movement and you're thinking, oh, what's Wikidata? What's Wikimedia Commons? Don't worry. I will explain everything in a moment, and we'll have introductions kind of to the different things as we go. It's really helpful if you don't know quite what we mean by something, if you put a question in the chat, and I'm sure Sarah can keep an eye on that as well. And equally, if there are things that I don't know about smell, I really want to know them. So it's very two-way. That which is one of the reasons I wanted to do this session, to expand more. So just in case people aren't kind of familiar with what we mean by the Wikimedia movement, most people I think will be familiar with Wikipedia. like the encyclopedia that people will use online. And there are also over a dozen other projects. The session this evening isn't going to focus on Wikipedia because I think most people are familiar with it, but more so on Wikidata, which is a database kind of behind Wikipedia and these other projects, and also Wikimedia Commons, which is where we store all our image and audio and video files. No smell file yet, but conversations have started. So, more on that later, perhaps. And there's a whole other range of different projects that I have never done anything with that you'll see in these symbols here. So there's Wiktionary, which is like a dictionary. There's Wikispecies, which records all the different species in the world. There's Wikivoyage, which is like a set of travel guides, like Lonely Planet. So there's lots and different parts in the Wikimedia movement that you might not necessarily have heard of and that we won't be touching on today. But it is something that is much bigger than just Wikipedia. Uh, cool. So I thought it might be useful to just kind of explain where this idea came from, because it has kind of had a sort of slightly circuitous route in my mind, and why I've become very passionate about it. So, as I said to begin with, I work in museums, and I was at a conference coming up to 2 years ago, and it was a very museumsy conference, which was like, how can we have better museum databases that can better represent all the different qualitative things about collections? So how can we represent memory, and how can we represent things like smell and touch when you're with objects and so on. And we were talking in this discussion about how can museums represent sensory information in their databases. And because I'm a Wikipedia editor, I said to myself, oh, I'll go and look what Wikidata does, because they will have this database that supports all our projects. It will have something set up already. And it didn't, which really surprised me. So I got quite involved with Wikidata, and the thing that I was particularly interested in is how could we say that one thing smelt like another thing? And there wasn't a way that we could do that in a format on the database 2 years ago, but there is now, which is really, really good, because I'm really interested, because I like trivia, and also the Wikimedia movement is a global movement. So there's people in every country in the world, as there's huge potential for lots of kind of cross-cultural information sharing. And that really excites me. So the thought that we could have people from different cultures adding what different things smelt like according to them just kind of really inspired me. Um, so just because it's Christmas time, I thought I'd get some Christmas smells up just to kind of get us in the mood. So this is just the first 20 results that you get when you Google smell of Christmas, and it comes up in the Google search box. So it's things like peppermint, pine, gingerbread, frankincense. I don't know whether these are a bit of a Northern Hemisphere Christmas. I'm not sure if anyone in New Zealand has a different set of Christmas smells, or people in other countries might. But it also got me thinking, some of these clearly have very strong smells. Christmas itself has a smell, but some things are a bit more kind of like a bit more subtle. The smell of snow, for example, like the smell of like cranberries. I'm not sure I can really imagine that. I was quite interested that this was the search result, and some of it isn't as smelly as you might think. What does a chestnut smell of? So this is just to kind of illustrate some of the questions that we might all be having about smell, and probably some people in a more advanced way than I am. But how do you represent that within Wikidata and more broadly? So, and that's kind of the big question, because for me, all of the information that we're adding about smell is very much like an investment in our kind of cultural future. Um, More on that with some specific examples, but I'll leave us with this kind of festive aroma for now. Um, so why smell? Again, this is a question that kind of, when I've spoken to people, they've gone, yeah, but why? And I think some people might be familiar, but others might be less familiar. The goal of the Wikimedia mo movement overall is to represent the sum of all human knowledge. And currently, even if you're looking at Wikipedia rather than these other projects, smell is very kind of underrepresented in how the world is described. Wikipedia is very visual. It's very much about what you read with your eyes and the images you see with your eyes. And I before we even get onto like touch and taste, I feel like smell is perhaps the most accessible of the senses beyond sight and audio to be added to this project that aims to, record our sensory experience of humanity, which is all very, highfalutin and bold. But I find it quite inspiring. Um, and it's also important, and that's sometimes I think I perhaps sometimes lose sight of that a little bit, in that smell helps us understand the world around us, and it helps other people to understand the world. Um, your sense of smell can be so subjective. Um, we've all spoken to friends and have gone, "Oh, I like the smell of this. Oh, I hate the smell of that," and so on. Um, and it can be diagnostic, and it can be relational as well. And it can also be absent. There are people who don't have a sense of smell or who lose their sense of smell, and it might need to be kind of uh, reanimated kind of within them. I know that's happened to some people in the COVID-19 pandemic. So it really is something that's quite that's so important, so kind of central to us as humans. But, and I'll come back to this point again, it's really very absent in the Wikimedia movement, which is one of the most important ways that we are kind of archiving and describing and making our world accessible. So this is the first of our quizzes. Can I just check, is everyone ready for a small quiz? Is that okay? Yeah? Okay, good. Some nods, thank you. So the next there's only three questions. And if you could, yes, see some thumbs up. Thank you so much. So it's just a quick guessing game. But it's building on that idea of like what things smell like. And these were some of the examples that I used to argue that we should have a way of describing how one thing might smell like something totally different. So, question number one, what does a binturong smell like? And the picture on the left is a binturong, which is a mammal from, I think, Southeast Asia. Um, and you can put an answer in the chat, or if anyone's feeling brave, you can shout it out. Um, or I can give you all the answers at the end if you'd rather as well.
Ooh, let's guess in the chat.
Okay, guess in the chat, guess in the chat. Let me open the chat. Where's my pointer gone? Some people might know this already, as well. Like it is ooh, yes, yes. Perfect. Okay, I'll reveal all the answers at the end. But yeah, we've got a bit of B and C for number one. Number two. So this is an artwork. This is an artwork called Smell, by an artist called Nadia Karbi-Linker. And what does smell, the artwork, smell like? Could be popcorn, could be bitter almond, could be jasmine. Yeah, yeah, some votes for B and C. Excellent. I've only got a very small chat box, so I can't. Oh, nice. Okay. And then our third question, what does cyanide smell like? Uh, yeah, bitter almond. Yes. People have perhaps read some murder mysteries, I think, maybe. Yeah, okay, good, 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 good. So the point with all of these is that is to basically, so the binturong, it smelled of popcorn. apparently if you cuddle a binturong, and I don't know if that is advisable or not, but apparently it smells of popcorn, like it has a very like popcorny smell. Um, uh, the letters, the calligraphy in Nadia's work, that's made from dried jasmine. So you're absolutely right, it smells of jasmine and cyanide, bitter almonds, absolutely. And I think these examples really, really illustrate how unexpected smells can be around the world and how things that are very unrelated can be reminiscent of things that are more familiar. And I think it's really important that we find ways to link and connect this information, which is what I've been doing with Wikidata in particular, and other people have as well. It's not just me, but I think I'm the one that's sort of talking about it. So, so just in case people are wondering, but how do we smell? Like, I've never really thought about this before. How does our sense of smell work? So this is a guy, this is a image I got from Wikimedia Commons actually that someone's drawn and scanned in, which I think is very cute. And essentially what happens when we smell is that there are chemical molecules in the air and they are detected by a person or an animal. And I think it's also like important to remember that animals will be experiencing a smell-related world in a very different way to humans do. And what we're recording currently in Wikimedia is just human experience. So there's a whole other side of things. If there are zoologists here, if there are philosophers here, that's kind of not being recorded, but should be, Um, and these molecules can be released by solid or liquid substances. They spread out into the air. We breathe them in. Then part of our brain kind of senses them. And then that sense, my understanding, and I think there'll be people in the room who will be able to explain this better than me. But my understanding is we don't think about our sense of smell in our forebrain. It kind of goes to our amygdala, and it's kind of processed there. So it's very, very what's the word? It's a very innate response that we have to smell. Um, and we kind of don't overthink it in the ways that we do perhaps about other things. So it's these molecules in the air that are really what we're smelling, rather than kind of objects themselves. So coming back to this kind of what makes something smell. So chemical molecules are detected. I've got this really nice image, I think, of Mehmet II, which is a beautiful medieval Turkish illustration. Um, and he's smelling a rose. But I think the fact that he's smelling a rose, it's probably maybe a bit small on your screens, is a really important example because anyone who kind of knows about roses as flowers knows that not all roses have perfume, not all roses smell. So you can look at some images and you can be like, oh, that image probably smells of roses, but we also know from science that not all roses have a scent. So there's this kind of balancing act, I think, to be done by what you might assume an image to show. And this will be clear when we come to uploading things on Commons. Not everything that's in an image will have its own scent necessarily. And not everything, as we talked about before, also has a scent that humans, I would say, or me, perhaps, can detect. So this is probably the most detailed of the slides. And this speaks to when I mentioned Wikidata. So we need to find ways that we can explain these relationships that use quite direct links between the scent of roses that is coming out of the rose in Mehmet II's hand, and to the act of smelling that he's doing as well. And this is one very conscientious model for doing that was developed by a project called Ode Europa, which has created like an encyclopedia of smell for Europe between I think 1600 and 1900, and is an amazing project if you're interested in this. this is their kind of, very advanced kind of model for smell. It's called an ontology. Um, but as we will see, the one that we're using on Wikidata is a bit less, yeah, less advanced than this. And is everyone following okay as well? Like, good, 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 good. So how do we explain these relationships? So we have our object in the bottom left corner, could be our rose, could be my Christmas tree. I told you it would be festive. And then we have the smell emission. So the smell of pine that's still coming from my tiny Christmas tree, and my nose has detected it. And that's what you would see in this bottom line of the Ode Europa ontology. So the olfactory experience is the smell from the smell emission. The people who are using and creating Wikidata are, like me, are much more pragmatic. So often when we are describing how a smell is experienced, we will just say, so and so smells the Christmas tree. They won't say it smells of the smell of a Christmas tree. And that's just kind of like an important distinction to remember, because you can describe something as the smell of a Christmas tree, and you can also say something smells like a Christmas tree. And it's part of this kind of ongoing work to kind of get more data sets and more testing of information so that we can settle on how we should describe these things. So you might be someone who's really experienced at doing this, and you might be thinking, oh, well, why is this not settled? Why is there not a clear path already? And within the Wikimedia movement, lots of our decision making is very collective. So we often need to have like multiple examples of things so that we can collaboratively work through them. It's not necessarily a case of one person saying, we need to do it like this. Um, it's always a much more kind of communal slash anarchic way of creating models, which is very fun, but might is sometimes feels slightly kind of counterintuitive. So good. Okay, so I've got another quiz. You got a highlight. So we've talked about how you smell things, and the important role that our noses have. So just another quick quiz for the chat. Guess the festive nose. And one of them is a slightly, it's a bit harder. So number one, whose nose might that be? Number two, whose nose might that be? Number three, whose nose might that be? And number four, I've made an assumption that they have a nose, but now I'm querying it myself. But if anyone wants to put a guess in the chat, that would be great. Yes, yes, you're there. You're there. Yes. Perfect. The crab is in fact a Christmas Island crab. Yeah, yes. A Christmas Island crab. You're there, Sarah. Yes, yes. Well done, everyone. Perfect. Yeah. And I just thought this was also a very kind of like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Did they? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Slightly, slightly. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, so thanks. So yeah, so chemosense, but not noses like ours, but they do have smell. This is exactly what I wanted to learn, so thank you. So again, hope another little festive quiz for you all. Um, Excellent. So sorry, I'm just moving my clicker over. So the next bit that I'm going to do, does anyone need a break? Is everyone okay? Everyone's okay? Great, good, good, good. So what the next bit is going to be is I'm going to talk about Wikidata and smell, and then I'm going to do an on-screen demonstration, and then I'm going to talk about Wikimedia Commons and smell, and then I'm going to do an on-screen demonstration, and then there's another part of this as well. But these are the next two things that are coming. Uh, so, uh, so this is just a couple of examples. Sorry, I should have changed that heading in the slides. Apologies. So this is an example that I made, which is fragrance of bluebells, because I went for a walk in a bluebell wood, and I really wanted to find a way to record that scent, which if you've been to a bluebell wood in England in early May, can be really like intoxicating and overpowering. And there was no representation of the fragrance of bluebells until I added it, which was nice to do. Um, We'll look at Wikidata in a second, but just to bear in mind, there are different properties to add. What is it? What's its cause? What's its effect? What does something smell of? And I will show you kind of how those work just in 1 second with our demonstration. So I'm just going to stop sharing and just get my screens back together to where I want to be. I appreciate your patience. And then I will come back in. Do, 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 do. Great. So have people seen the interface for Wikidata before? That would be really interesting. No? Great. Couple? A bit? Perfect. Okay. This is great. Um, so welcome to Wikidata if you haven't seen it before. If you like organizing things, it will tickle your brain in just the right way. So it is a database essentially that connects all the Wikipedia articles that you might be reading with all the different kinds of information about them, and also links them to other things like image files, or if there's been a transcription of a book, for example, that would link to somewhere else. So it kind of started as a hub to connect all the different things that were related to Wikipedia, and now it's expanded into this enormous knowledge base, so database. Anyone can edit it, just like Wikipedia, and what's really interesting about Wikidata is that it's kind of interlingual, so things have a number, and then you give them a name as a label, which means that you can search across languages without knowing the languages themselves, which is really useful for a kind of global movement. So what I was going to do was add a new smell while everyone kind of watches. And having had a boyfriend when I was quite young who really liked to play video games while I watched, I am aware that it's not always the most fun thing to like watch someone doing a demo, but I think this is worth it. Okay, smell of old books. Okay, so I'm just going to check no one's put a smell of old books in here already. No, but interestingly, there is this, which I can, here we go, which is a item, like an entry for an article about the smell of old books, which is very interesting. But let's go here. So to create a new item, which essentially is a new entry in this database, go to create new item. And that number that I mentioned, that's automatically created. It starts with a Q, and then it will have many digits kind of after it. And what you put in is how you would describe it. What is the label? So I'm going to put smell of old books. And how would we describe that? Odor? Odor. It can be really hard to think of like how you would, yeah, describe things slightly differently. So if anyone's got ideas, please do put them in the chat.
Oh,
I see
we've
a
got
couple
a
of comments.
we've got a suggestion of musty
Oh,
from Eric,
oh, nice,
or
nice. Yeah,
moldy,
yeah.
woody.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Could be okay. Okay. So with the kind of description, we're thinking maybe like a bit bigger. So these are all definitely words that you would use to describe how the smell of old books smells 100%. But it's more like how do you what's the sort of higher level that you're describing it as? We'll just put odor for now, but we can edit it like at any time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click create, and it's here. So we've got this Q number, which I'll just highlight, which is the um, the central reference for what we are going to describe now. And then you can add lots of different languages to it as well. I just have various Englishes and French up, but any one of the 300 plus languages that are used on Wikimedia projects could be put in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start describing it. So each different aspect of this item in the database needs to be described in what we call a triple. So it's because you're saying that this Q number, smell of old books, that's triple bit number one, is an instance of, and this is like what is the real like core thing it is. So like I'm a human. That's like the most kind of like derived thing that I am. I am a human. For the smell of old books, we'll probably say that it is an odor, and then we're going to publish it. So this immediately adds into the database. The smell of old books is itself an odor. We can also add other things about it. So, and this is where all these other drop downs, these are all called properties. And these are all different ways that we can continue to describe this database item. It doesn't have a coordinate location. We could describe if this has been described somewhere. So, and this is actually a big coincidence, but it is described in this article. So we can get this Q number. We can go back here. We can say described by source. We can put that in there, and we can click publish. And that's added there as well. So now these two different parts of Wikidata are also linked. And this then starts to be expanded the more information you start adding to this global database that's behind all our different kind of Wikimedia projects. We would want to add something that says it's related to books. So might say has characteristic. It's quite a generic way of describing things. Velocore. Oh, that's a great word. Ooh. Ooh. So I'll put books for now. Going back to what I was saying and not being distracted by the chat. Yep, so it's a characteristic of book and so on. So you can keep adding information. But the important thing is that within this global database of humanities knowledge, we've now got this this entry in the database that describes this particular smell, which for me, as someone who wants to help and support recording of this sense, is quite an exciting thing. And hopefully it doesn't look too difficult for people to do by themselves. Does that look fairly straightforward? Yeah, good, 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 good. Okay, so let me switch back to my slides. Okay, so does anyone need a break? You all okay? Cool, great. So we'll look at Wikimedia Commons and smell as well. So the same will happen again. I'll talk through a little bit of what I've been doing around images, and then I'll run you through an example again. So, so when we upload an image, there are three different things that I think we should do specific to Wikimedia Commons. So we need to make sure that the file name and the description, they both describe the smell in there. If anyone's tried to search on Wikimedia Commons, it's not that easy, it's not so easily searchable. So by making sure file names in particular have something smell related in them, then that helps people to find it again. So this is on the same walk as the Bluebell Walk that I went on in the spring this year. But this time it's wild garlic, which I don't know if it's a plant that's not in Europe, I'm not sure. But it's got these like white flower heads that are kind of like fluffy, like in a ball, and these big broad green leaves, and it grows in woodland. And then around the same time as the bluebells, there's this really pungent smell of garlic kind of everywhere, particularly when you tread on the plants, but more generally from the flowers too. It's also in the States. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. And again, this kind of hasn't been recorded. There weren't any sort of images of it that related to the smell. So I think it's just like a really interesting and important thing to do. Um, you should also try and add categories to your images, which when I do a demonstration will make a little bit more sense. So I think someone was talking about petrichor. Yes, Kirsty, and hello. Yes, so there's a couple of files in the petrichor category already, but I think there could easily kind of be more. And you'll see in this slide about petrichor, there's like a box on the far right. So this is linking to the Wikidata entry for petrichor. So that's another example of how where we keep our images and our database is pulling the information together and aggregating it. And someone's added a pronunciation as well, which is really, really cool. And then the third thing is that we add our structured data. And again, that's adding this link to an entry on Wikidata that relates to the sense of smell. And we'll go into another demo now, if no one has any questions. Nope. Great, okay. Again, slightly awkward, moving around, getting rid of my slides. Finding the right tab. You're very patient. Sharing the screen again. Okay, so you should see a web page that says Wikimedia Commons. Perfect. Have people used Wikimedia Commons before? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Little nods, great, perfect. So you're more familiar with it. Fantastic. So it's the media repository behind all our Wikimedia projects, mostly images, some video, some sound, some 3D models, but not to a huge degree or capacity. When I first presented about why we should talk about smell, some of the people who were in the audience thought that I was proposing a new type of smell file to be part of Wikimedia Commons, which I wasn't at the time. Um, and that's like a whole other discussion. Like I'd love to come back to. Perhaps if people here have experience of that, or just to talk about, what, how do we conceive an openly licensed smell file? Anyway, but it's interesting because people were like, oh, we could probably do that. We just don't know how. But by and large, most of the time, Wikimedia Commons is where we're storing our images. So what I'm going to do is just as I did previously, I'm going to upload an image, talk you through what I'm doing, and then hopefully the process and the linkages will just become slightly clearer. So if you've not uploaded an image before, I'll just talk you through what I'm doing actually. So there's an upload button here. You do have to be logged in with like a Wikimedia account to add images to Commons, but you can keep that we just ask for a username and an email. That's all, no other information. And then you click the upload button and you pick the media files to share. So I appreciate it's a bit of a small file. But you might have seen, I'll get it up here actually, so that you know what I'm, oh, there we go. So it is in fact an image of a bookshop that I went to at the weekend. Um, it is slightly, I think, what did Lucy do on her holidays? But, you know, it will all make sense. So we've got this nice image of this bookshop that I took because the smell in that particular room of it was just, it was so atmospheric. Like it was so atmospheric. I was like, oh, this would be a great example. So when we're uploading images, Wikimedia has very strict rules around copyright. And by and large, a rule of thumb is if you've taken it yourself and it's not of a copyrighted artwork or book or sculpture or other form of media, then you can upload it. It depends very much, however, on the kind of the country that you're on, and the rules around copyright are very specific to your own country. So I won't go into them now. Um, but if it is a more sort of general view of a place, or a landscape, or a picture that you took on your phone of some delicious food, then that's absolutely fine to upload. And I'm going to tick the box that says this work was created by me and anyone is free to use it because I am the person who took the photograph. Is it entirely created? Is it entirely my own work? Yes, it's created by me. The kind of spines of the books don't count because it's kind of, you're taking a picture of the room as a whole rather than any individual work. I didn't use AI to do it, and there's no real works of others. What license do I want to publish it under? So again, I won't go into all the detail of the licenses, other than to say if you're adding something on Wikimedia Commons, you are giving a very, very open license that allows people to kind of reuse the work, including for commercial purposes, which is something people might want to think about. I don't mind if someone uses this picture of this room for commercial purposes. I don't think it's very high resolution, and I don't think my photography is that great either. So I'm okay. So I'm going to click Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike, and that means that when someone does reuse it, they should say that I was the photographer as well, which is just a nice thing to keep everything together. So going back to the three things that we kind of talked about at the just previously, so we need to give this like a proper file name that reflects the fact that there's smell kind of connected to it. So I don't know if people want to put any suggestions in the chat for how to describe a room in a bookshop that that smells of old books. We could do it a bit collaboratively, or I can start making a guess. So I'm going to put
Fragrant, no.
yeah, like fragrant doesn't really work.
Fragrant old bookshop, no.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna say like room in bookshop with strong smell of old books. And so that's going to be the file name. So things that will be picked up when it's being searched are room in bookshop with like bookshop, smell, old books, and so on. And I'm going to use the same for the caption, and that's what would kind of be suggested to be used as a caption by people who might be reusing the images. But I'm going to also put that it was in Aberystwyth, if I can spell it. Nope. In Wales. Yeah, just to give that a bit of extra information. So it's already picked up that the date and the time just from the image that I took it. And kind of what is most visible in the image. So what are the things that we can kind of see most obviously, or what stand out to you? Smell aside. So it would be, for me, if it would be books, we'd probably want to add bookstore. There's perhaps more carpet than I would like in there, so I'm going to put there. And you might be thinking, oh, why are you adding this as well? And it's just to make all the different aspects of the image more searchable. So even though I'm uploading this image because it's related to how old books smell in a place in Wales, someone else might want to come and use it because they're really interested in beige carpet. It's not my interest, but it might be someone else's. And we're going to add a category like we talked about before, and I think I'm just going to add bookstore here. I don't think there's a category for Velicor. No, but it can automatically search for things. You can also put a category for smell. So we'll just put this, yeah, this there, and then it gives you kind of different suggestions. So we'll put odor. Yeah, there we go. And again, it's got the coordinates, and then I'm going to go down and I'm going to click publish. And here it is. So it's now been uploaded to Wikimedia Commons. We can click this link. This takes us to like its image file page on Wikimedia Commons. And then the next thing to do and the final thing to do for this is where we'd added to Wikidata smell of old books. We can now connect that smell to the image so that when people come to use and mine and research this data, the different things are connected up. And the other thing that we can do is we can also go back to smell of old books and we can add an image. And we just copy and paste the file name and it appears. So again, it's all about connectivity, creating this smell related knowledge base within the Wikimedia movement, but also making sure that the different aspects of it kind of join together. How does that seem to people? I've seen a couple of nods. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm curious about like the smell description side. Like right now, it feels very bare bones
Mm.
rather than like different perceptual takes on it or like the chemicals that are present, any of that. So is it meant to be more general or is there room for more specific?
There's absolutely room for more specific, and I have a series of examples coming up that are more specific. So
Cool.
I think it will answer your question. Um, but it's really good because I totally agree. It is very bare. It's like, oh, you've added an odor and a picture and like you've linked it to another article, but there's not that, you know, qualitative range that you would want to see. And yeah, I think that's definitely true. Um, I'm just going to check where I was going next on my slides. Just bear with me. Because what I can do. Oh yeah, it leads perfectly into this. It's fine. I moved my slides around in various orders, and I just thought for a minute, have I moved the next thing to the wrong place? But no, this is fine. So this actually leads on to like, how do we get our data about smell? Um, so I hope perhaps some of the people here will have suggestions for like databases around smell that can be pulled into Wikidata and images that can be, as well as images that can be added. Um, I've approached this like I'm a curator, I'm a museum person. So I'm definitely coming at it from this very kind of sort of like humanities kind of like focused, like where can I find information about smell and how can I then like adapt that to add that in, rather than when I've spoken to people who have are still interested in smell but come from a different, like more scientific perspective, who have, I know, for example, that there are data sets about how you use sense of the different smells that mushrooms have in different states for different kinds of identification and things. Like I know that they exist, but I just haven't been able to kind of access them. But one of the things I have been doing is you might not have come across this memoir, but it was published earlier this year and it's called Base Notes by a writer called Adele Stripe. And she does something really interesting in that she writes a memoir about her life, and she's, I guess, like in her late 40s now, and each chapter is based around a perfume. And when I saw that this was being published, I thought, oh, this would be perfect for some of this smell work that I'm interested in. Like it will be really interesting to see kind of like what she does. And I have a copy here as well. And I would recommend it. Like it's a really good read. Um, and I was really keen to use this book, partly because, as I said, I'd been finding it harder to find some of this smell-related information. But also, when I first kind of talked about how how we could add and how we could expand smell-related content within the Wikimedia movement, one of the things that lots of people suggested was to look at fiction and to look at writing, as well as kind of more quantitative material as well. So I was very excited to see that. And then what I've been doing, hopefully. So can you now see a small screen that says Wikidata? Yeah, great. Okay. So I'm just going to talk you through what I've done, and then this will lead to an example that speaks to what Em was asking about. So I made a Wikidata item for the memoir. So it's called Base Notes, Sense of a Life. You can, again, it's described in exactly the same way. So it's an instance of literary work, its title, its genre, when it was published, and so on. And then what you might see, let me see if I can just make this a little bigger. So each of the chapters in the book is named after a different perfume. So we've got 4711, the Eau de Cologne, Rive Gauche, Giorgio, Beverly Hills, Dewberry, Tresor, CK1, Lamal, Angel. I don't know what the name of that one is, but it will be there. We'll have a look at that. Brut, L'Odyssey, and so on. Old Spice. Um, yeah, this is a scent called Earthworm, which I'd never heard of before. And it just the name wasn't appearing just because I hadn't put it in the English column. So there's all these different scents that she's referring to. And you'll see there's a reference to like where it's discussed, so the actual chapter in Base Notes as well. And then if we look at, let's look at Earthworm, because I opened that tab. So I don't know if people have heard of this perfumier, Demeter. They seem quite famous. Yeah. So I hadn't heard of them, but I was really like intrigued by what was going on. So again, I set up a Wikidata item for this particular perfume. And here is where we start to get some of the more qualitative material. So yes, it's made by the Fragrance Library. It's inspired by soil. And we've got a reference to their website there to describe that. And in Adele Stripe's book, she describes the smell itself. And she says variously, so when she describes each of the different smells, she does about a paragraph, and it smells like a list of different things. So here it smells of petrichor, freshly cut grass, autumn leaves, earth tincture, which is an ingredient in perfumery, musk as well. And then here, again, it says the reference that it's from and the page number as well. So again, we're always saying, when we're saying this smells like this, we always try and add a reference to, I'll just open the chat. Oh yeah, fun weird scents. Atta, oh thank you. Yeah, I looked at their website and I was really quite obsessed. I was like, oh, which one of these do I want to smell like? But what's also really very, very prominent in her memoir is how the smells are linked to memory. And I'm really interested in this as well, mostly from just like a personal point of view, that that smell is so evocative of different moments of like my life, as well as, I'm sure everyone here, that it's, and I was really keen to find a way that we could also record that. So we can use this, and this is a slightly more complicated way of describing it, but it's like, it's not that hard. So you're using that same has characteristic that we used before. So we're saying something is characteristic of this. And to describe memory, I chose to use reminiscence because she's kind of looking back at her life. And it's very much this kind of like, this scent connects to these particular feelings. And when she's talking about the memory that it reminds her of, there's kind of two different things. So it describes of this kind of this sort of qualitative experience of it being the springtime, and her being at home and there being dew around. And you've got the reference again. And she also talks about how earthworm was the opposite of its scent was exactly opposed to her mother's hair salon, which she describes as being very, very artificial, not at all natural. So you can also say that, this memory reminds her of the opposite of a hairdresser. And it, in fact, that it had the effect of giving her a migraine. So you can start to describe things more qualitatively. I will say describing people's personal memories is not yet common within Wikidata, but I think this is one way that we can add that more subjective material, whatever the topic. Smell is just one thing. That you can start to add it, and that not only kind of preserves it, but one thing that we won't touch on today, I don't think, but everything on Wikidata is searchable. So once there is an amount of information there, like any database, you can start querying it to find out, how many odors are there, which is the most popular smell comparison in Base Notes by Adele Stripe. Um, which things smell like other things, and so on. So you can once you have the information there, you can start to draw out really interesting things. And that's kind of happening already, which I'm quite excited by. There's someone that's really interested in wine, another editor. So he's adding a lot of information around wine to Wikidata at the moment. And there's someone that just in the last week started adding information about kind of perfume from Fragrantica. Fragrantica? I forget. So I'm sure someone will know. Another kind of database. Yeah, Frank, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. So yeah, they've started adding information from there as well. So it is quite an exciting time. So to go back to that point about how you can add things that are more qualitative, I think you can, but it's always within this framework of a very structured way of describing the world. You can add like longer form, like quotations in, but this structured way is always within this kind of like this format of X has this relationship with Y, with qualifiers kind of below. So thank you for making it, Lily. It's so great to see you. Looking forward to seeing what you do in the future. Bye, bye. Cool. So hopefully everyone's still with me, still okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So what I will now I'll get rid of this. And so this is just a future idea, which I'll run through quite quickly. And then we've got some time to edit together. Or if people have questions, we can go through those as well. So this is an idea that I think would be really fun, which kind of pulls on something that's very common in smell studies, so I'm sure people will be familiar with it, which is the smell walk, but also combines it with something that's quite common within the Wikimedia movement, which is a photo walk. So a photo walk is where people go around and take images of things and then upload them to Wikimedia Commons. And it's very eyes first. It's like what is interesting. And I have not done this yet, other than kind of like with myself. But I think that like a really fun thing to do would be a collaborative smell walk, where you walk around nose first, which is what smell works are in smell studies. And instead of recording what you think is, beautiful or natural heritage, you record the things that you smell. So this is an idea for anyone who might want to do something in the future. And I think it's really interesting because within sort of the Wikimedia movement, we're always thinking about what's notable, what's really important, what's really significant, what has all these other references that can support it, particularly for Wikipedia. But I think by perhaps doing something like this, you can start to not just investigate like the location that you're in from a new perspective, but it can start to add some of those kind of lesser recorded parts of history and culture, maybe not history, but culture and experience to our movement that aren't so recorded, and to also just try and understand the world differently. And if you've not had a look at it, Kate McLean's Smelfie Kit is really fantastic in explaining about how you might do this and go about it. And just to think about what's important, like you have to be intentional about what you're hoping to do. And the smells you perceive might be nice, they might be nasty. And there'll be things to look out for, is it nature? Is it rubbish? Is it, there's all kinds of different things that it could be, but really having kind of quite an open mind. However, we're all in sniffaries. Amazing. Maybe we can wikify a sniffari. That sounds fun if you would like to. Cool. So just as a final note before we kind of do our own collaborative editing, there are a couple of places where this is documented. So we have a project on what we call Meta, which is where we do organizing in the Wikimedia movement, and I'll put the link in the chat in a second. And that kind of just describes a bit of the background to the project. And then we also have a Wikidata project specifically around smell. And these wiki projects, these are places where editors or contributors with the same interest can come together and collaborate in a focused manner. And everyone is welcome, whether you've made one edit, no edits, or 100,000 edits. Very, very open. So with that, there's a few different options, and we'll have some Q&A after I go through these as well. I can do demos again, for example. But one thing you might want to do is upload a photo that shows a smell to Wikimedia Commons from somewhere on your camera roll. As long as you've taken it, it should be okay. If you're already uploading to Wikimedia Commons, look at your existing uploads and maybe add some smell-related descriptions if you can remember that there was a specific smell when you took that photograph. We've got some suggestions on the meta page of things you might do, or you might want to translate some labels for smells on Wikidata if you have a language other than English. Thank you. Thanks.